Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from TTG Trade Group, and it is 4:30 on Thursday, March 24th, and this is your end of day market recap. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. So what kind of day that we had today? Whew, pretty crazy considering. I always kind of like to just recap, where I finished off from yesterday's video and, talking about how today unfolded. But if you remember yesterday, the price action was a little bit surprising to me that we closed on the lows yesterday. Also, if you were kind of reading the tape yesterday as I was and noticing, where the option activity was, it was, in things like a lot more of the commodity plays, right? We started to see, what we've seen before on a few days, where we basically saw more value and more commodity plays being bought and holding up pretty decently towards the end of yesterday. And then a lot of growth areas just kind of faded yesterday. Today, I didn't, I had no predictions going into today. I said, hey, this is going to be kind of an interesting day. Futures were up a little bit into the open, which is not my favorite setup when you close on the lows from the previous day. But I just said, hey, I'm kind of neutral in terms of, I didn't have like a major prediction or stance that I was making. Basically the pre-market session at TTG Trade Group, which we do every day, right around 9:05 in the morning. I said, hey, I'm watching. I had about 4 or 5 stocks that I said that I'm watching, and I've got the best way to kind of pick up on the momentum is to have some alerts set. And then just notice which ones are triggering. We set them right at like, the pivot areas in terms of the market web's value areas, right? So looking for like breakouts out of different time frame, either the 5-minute or the 1-hour time frame. And that gives me a good sense of like, what and where the momentum was for today. So where did we finish for the day? So SPY finished up 1.5%. It's another plus 1% day, which is just kind of crazy. When you look at the SPY, which I've been doing this the last couple of days, so I'll continue to do it. But since last week, right, when we sold off in the beginning of the week, we've been up. We were up more than 1% 4 straight days. We were flat the beginning of this week, right? We were up again over 1%, down 1.3%, and up 1.5%. So lots of big moves going on, not dull. And again, the green days, I know people are putting together these stats because they're pretty crazy. Out of the last 2 weeks, right, we've had 6 up days, and every one of those up days has been up more than 1%. It's pretty incredible to see that type of price action. All right, so yeah, and then we could look at the Qs as well, just because I know a lot of people look at the Qs, but same thing. I mean, even more dramatic. Yesterday down 1.4% and up today 2.2%. I mean, it's very volatile price action. And speaking of volatility, one thing that was of note today is the VIX is back under 22. Right. I did not see that. I thought, I was looking for VIX to kind of come off, but I didn't think that we would get down to the lower 20s that quickly. Right. That's very fast that price action has occurred. All right. So there you go. Remember, just 2 weeks ago, what did we talk about? We talked about the bullish divergence that we saw in the VIX and in the S&P. Remember, not last week, but the week before, we saw the VIX go down for the week, as well as the S&P was down over 2% for the week. I thought that was very interesting. Again, it's a bullish divergence. I had so many people ask me, well, it could be this or it could be that, like trying to justify why the VIX was down. I said, no, I would just realize that it's a bullish divergence. And when I gave this answer to people didn't like it. I'm like, hey, this is something pretty good and pretty noticeable. It's a bullish divergence, right? Take it for what it is. Don't try to come up with some type of reason for why that's happening. And I got like the response when I said that to people, they didn't like it. But it is what it is in this market. You want to pay attention to when you get clues in the marketplace, something that stands out to you, right? That stood out to me a couple weeks ago. Again, I didn't expect that we would see the VIX all the way down to 21 in a matter of 2 weeks from hanging around the 30s for a while. So, but just impressive, right? So again, it's just one of those things that it always amazes me, this market, and how quickly things can change, right? So back above the 200-day moving average, a little bit of back and filling that we kind of thought might happen. I spent some time talking about the 1 hour VPOC, and that we might see some digestion around there. We did. We did see some digestion on that 1 hour. Same thing with the NASDAQ too, right? We actually faded a little bit from there. But the way that this market has been going is that we're climbing over some of the short-term resistance, right? We did it also back here, right? So no major VPOC takeout and fade, right? We're moving in the right direction. All right, so we'll see if we can kind of continue to build from there. Would I be surprised if tomorrow the market sold off? No, I wouldn't, right? That's just the way that this market has been kind of moving a little bit. And I think you just try to, one of the things that we've been talking about in the trading room is just staying open-minded, and being nimble with how this market is changing. Like I said, coming into today, I wasn't sure what type of a market we were going to get, considering that we saw a little bit more of like defensive areas. Like, one of the things that stood out to me yesterday was gold, right? And I actually went long gold, which worked quite fine today. Was up 1% today. I was able to take a target in that. And some other things too, like even like I put on a trade in Con Ed, which actually closed on the highs today, right? So you had all this move. We're going to get to the semiconductors in just a second. Like that was the star of the day, but just odd, right? You look at Con Ed and some of the other utilities that were looking pretty good at the end of yesterday too. And they actually, they delivered, right? So you could have been, and I actually like when this happens in the marketplace, when it's not just one group of stocks, when you can have the utilities rally and the semiconductors and blockchain stocks and steel names too, which we'll get to those in a second. And also, the other thing to note too, which I mentioned pre-market, is I like to see when we open whether or not this is minty green, right? It's minty green when the breath is strong for the day, right? That also, I've talked about this multiple times. And, I said, if the market breath comes out and it's weak, then I don't trade that much on the long side, right? I kind of sit, I wait until it's a better atmosphere and then I go from there. And today kind of, it just built, it basically built, right? Here's how it looked like for instance, on the open. Or maybe I must have put it, this was at 1:30, but I did put this somewhere in the room earlier where it was not as dark green. It was a little bit milder than this. And you could see basically on the bottom of this, but that it got better as the day went on. All right. Also, something that we've been doing, I've been using this in Slack. They have this microphone, which is pretty cool. You can record audio clips. So I've been doing that whenever I get into a trade, just to kind of to give basically the just the rundown of the trade idea, or of the market as well, right? So we did this for a couple names. So my thoughts on gold yesterday. I took a little bit of a sweet green trade today too, which is off to a decent start too. But so let me keep going. I want to talk about a few other things here. So yes, why don't we get to NVIDIA and why that was interesting today? That was actually the first thing that I did today. I believe it was the first thing that I did today. Well, I took some targets here. I took a short position. This was, so this was right around, I think right around like 5 minutes into the day. I added back a target in NVIDIA. What I said pre-market to members is that, I started a position kind of late last week. I was not early catching the NVIDIA move. By any means. I always like to kind of tell you exactly like, what happened, because I think there's too many victory laps on Twitter, or there's too many people that are just like, oh yeah, see, I called it. Da, 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 da. I can tell you, I was late to this trade. in Nvidia and I didn't get involved into it until late last week. So I figured, one of the things that I was watching, right, just to kind of rehash my thought process, and I put this on Twitter, was I wanted to see if we were going to get back above the value area for the year, right? This value area on the weekly chart is based on the 2021 price action, right? So it's important to me, right? These are significant levels, right? So once we closed above 258, and I saw that type of a weekly bar, I couldn't help but get involved, even if it was late. Right. And then what I basically did this week is we knew we had this investor event that was coming up that was widely expected. Whenever something is widely expected, what happens? A lot of the times in trading, it's buy the rumor, sell the news. Right. So there was no reaction in the stock on the day of the event, which was here, I think. And then we actually sold off, but we sold off right into support. So I said, hey, I kind of talked about if we might get a little bit of a sell the news type reaction. And I said, hey, I took a target earlier in the week. And this way I could be very nimble with this stock and get back involved on a dip, which, rather than chase the price action. So I did that this morning. And what I specifically said was in the pre-market session was that, my plan is to try to stay in the stock for a while. Right. But to take targets, to sell rips, and to buy dips a little bit, just like we got one in here. So where are we now with the stock? Well, my ultimate target is probably 300 at that virgin point of control, that red line. And we did take out this 1 hour VPOC, which will come up into the picture here, which I think is basically where we kind of stopped for the day. Oh, let me just bring in 180 days. And I'll let that adjust. There it is. Bing. Right. By the way, all these, I get this question from time to time. People think I manually draw these lines in. They're not manually drawn in, right? It is based on volume at price, right? And our market webs indicator does it for it. And it makes really nice if you're doing trading like I am, short-term, I don't want to say short-term swing trading. Sometimes it is short-term swing trading. Right. Today, for example, when I added to my position, I took the majority of that position off today. So I guess it is to some extent short term. But like I said, I want to be in this trade for a little bit longer than a short term swing. If it happens to get to our price target, so be it. So you could see we went right up to there. And that's where I took my second target of the day. Now, notice you've got another one up there at 298. That meshes very well with the daily time frame. So again, we look at multiple time frame analysis, right? Multiple time frame analysis. I look at where there's resistance, right? I think I gave you the analogy the other day, talking about a running back. You don't want to see linebackers right in front of you, right? So you basically have like a safety all the way back here, right? So you've got some running room if it can stay above this 280, right? So there's me getting back involved in this trade. Again, I had already held a piece, but I added to it, right? And then I took a target here, 274. And then where's my other target? Oh, I got to scroll down. A lot of activity today for me today. A lot of trades, a lot of adjusting of positions. So there's my third target, 280, right? Now we might as well go through this whole sector. Obviously, the whole sector had strength to it, right? Here is, you could either look at the SMH ETF or you could look at the SOX ETF, and you could see NVIDIA was the best performer, but also Marvell, Intel, AMD. So we'll go over, I think a lot of people were looking for AMD to kind of catch too. So you finally got rewarded a little bit today if you were patient with this. Had a couple of these inside type days and then took off. And we were analyzing this in the room. And I still thought the play was NVIDIA, which is what I said earlier. And I'm wrong all the time. But I don't stay wrong for long. And I took a trade too. In AMD, I got in at 116, wanted to make sure it broke above value, went all the way up to 120, which is where I took a couple targets. Still holding a small piece in this one, right? But if you go through, right, another name that we've been talking about, which has just been kind of, it's a quiet, it doesn't move like an AMD or an NVIDIA, but today it did. Well, maybe not as much, but I've been talking about how I like this setup in Broadcom, right? Had a nice day here. If you go through some of these other ones, of course, on a day like this, the charts are really going to look good. But Marvell got back above 50-day moving average, also closed above value. Oh, and semi, right? I should actually probably extend this. There you go. And that closed right at the value. Or also, ASML is another one too. This one really got beaten up, and it's still below the 200-day moving average. So you could consider this a counter trend trade because it's still below the 200-day moving average. But I think this thing could maybe come up here to 711 or 729, take these levels out, and then maybe pauses up here once it gets there. But where I would be wrong is if it gets back below 669 here, top of value. All right, so that was a big day in the semiconductors, and very nice to see. And again, if you're methodical, putting alerts in place for some of these stocks, because you can't watch them all, that really helps me. So that was a couple nice winners in the room. The other group that was extremely strong was the steel names, and I didn't participate in this group, even though I've got a lot of positions on in this group. I am long the XME in the TTG trend portfolio, but look at Cliffs today. Right? Everybody talking about NVIDIA, nobody talking about Cliffs. These names all saw calls today. Cliffs, US Steel, just amazing performance. Nucor saw calls. STLD saw calls. Right? All of these, I mean, this is on fire, this group. Schnitzer Steel got an upgrade today. Huge, up 4. You thought NVIDIA moved a lot. This is up 14% today. Right? Again, it's not going to move as many dollars, but the percent very, very good. So steel names really good. Also, I did not play this one. I've been so active in these things. I just didn't think that you were going to get a move like this out of MP Materials, because I had so many times where this thing looked like it was going to break out and it failed. So I didn't play it this time. Several members in the room in the trading room played it, so good for them. But another monster move, closed on the highs today. Whew. Right. And then if you look even at a name that I've been talking about for a little while, looks pretty good. It's a cheapy name, material name, LYB. Right, a little bit more slower moving. Also, if you look at things like this is Lind, back above the 200-day moving average. Very impressive. Another name that we've been talking about is LAC. Look at the move outside of value. Lithium up 8% today. All right, so that's enough. And of course there was this story about the pot stocks and about, I guess, them. What was the decision that the House says that they're not going to persecute for marijuana crimes? The whole group flies on these types of headlines. Tillery was up, 21%. These things to me are all day trades. I would just take the momentum, take it for what it is, and put it in your pocket, right? Because all these things are in downtrends, right? That's my view on this anyway. Right, very deep downtrends. Of course, they could bounce further. All right, what else did I do today? I took some profits in gold. One of the things too, I noticed that there were some reversals in some of the energy names. I had a couple questions on things like Oxy. Right, Oxy was down 3.5%. These names will come in. I mean, they've all gone up so much. So what did I do? I've been long Halliburton for about a week or something like that. I took my Halliburton trade off, right? Not that it was down so much, and it's actually still holding trend, but just in case we get a rotation, right? I'm still holding 1 or 2 names. I'm still holding my tech, and I took some profits on this one. It's funny, as soon as I tweeted this out, the stock reversed. Sometimes I deserve that, I think, when I take a victory lap, but it's still holding the trend. It just didn't close on the highs. So thankfully, and that's why I take targets. The more that you could take targets, the more flexible that you could be, right? Of course, if the name continues to rally, you're not going to get all the profits, but it just puts me in a really good situation. So I did take a target at 41.50. The stock closed at 40.64. So that sets me up for tomorrow. Like, so if I want to, I could put that target right back in, like the NVIDIA trade, right? I also got into, the silver. Again, this is where sometimes you think you know what's going to happen for the day. And I saw silver was up and the silver miners looked really good. And then if it's not there, if I decide that I don't want to be in a reversal, so I just took that trade off and said, hey, that's not the day that we're going to have, right? And where did I take this off? There it is. All right, so small loss. Well, small losses are fine, right? Sweet Green, I've been watching this name, so I just felt like, hey, if you're watching it, you might as well take a position. What I found interesting about this name is had this nice swing up right into the 20-day moving average. It looked like a logical place for me to try like a little bit of a trade, right? Here's your VPOC takeout to the downside and reversal hammer bar off of that. And we'll see, I will probably look to take a target at 35. And then ultimately, if it gets up to, somewhere in the range of 50, if it bounces back up, that's a nice little trade. Consider the stock's at, $33. Where did I get in at 30? I think I got in at 32 and change, 32.60. All right, I forced a target in Juniper. Again, the only reason why I did that is I've been sitting with this trade on my books for about a week, but it actually looks pretty good. Again, it's a slower mover. It's not gonna, I don't think it's going to move 10% a day, but I like what's going on here, and I like the consolidation on the top of value. So it's a name to watch for tomorrow. A couple other names that were of interest. Arista Networks, that was one of our names, one of our watch list names. Also, Synopsys still looks pretty good, right, above all these moving averages. Here is our, I mean, this is really good. Our watch list performed wonderfully, right? I put in a lot of work on the weekends to come up with this list, right? I go through a lot of screening of stocks. Tesla up 12%. NVIDIA it's funny because NVIDIA is not up that much, but I guess because it sold off midweek, right? But look at some of these other names up over 10%. CF Industries, which continues just to be a workhorse. Alcoa is up 15% from the trigger, right? BTU's up 12%. There's Synopsys, which I still think looks pretty good. And here's Arista Networks is down here. So very, very good. Very good. Our list isn't always that great. I think we had a really good list a couple of weeks ago too, but all right, guys, I'll leave it there. Should make for an interesting Friday, and we'll see how it sets up for us. All right, guys, have a great night and see you tomorrow.